Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kevin Galetz, and I'm an industry education coordinator working with the Regina District Industry Education Council and SunWest School Division. Today it's my pleasure to introduce a former student of mine, Ryan Cross. Ryan is a fire investigator with the City of Saskatoon Fire Department, and Ryan will tell us all about the very important work he does for the City of Saskatoon and how he got to this point in his career. Just a reminder before we begin, this session is being recorded and will appear on the RDIEC YouTube channel for you or others to view in the future. I'd like to request that any students who view this session go to our website at www.rdiec.ca and complete the student survey that can be found near the top of the website homepage. Completion of the survey gets your name in a monthly draw for a $50 gift card. Again, the website is www.rdiec.ca. Once again, welcome, Ryan, and I'll turn it over to you.
Hi. Thanks for having me. And it's a nice day here in sunny Saskatoon. It's not snowing, so that's good. So yeah, like Kevin said, I'm a former student of Mr. Glatz. We never called him Kevin, so it's a little weird calling him Kevin. But anyways, I was a former student in Rosetown, the high school, and I'm currently a fire inspector and a fire investigator in Saskatoon, which I already noticed I got a mistake on here. It's supposed to be fire investigator and fire inspector, but I'll get going here. So yeah, I'm with Saskatoon Fire Department, married with 4 children, been in the fire service for about 18 years now. I've been a fire inspector for 11 years, 3.5 years with Saskatoon Fire Department. So since 2018 to current right now. And I was a fire inspector in Martensville with Martensville Fire Department for 7.5 years. I've been a fire investigator with Saskatoon Fire Department for the last 3 years. So it's a dual role that I have with the fire department. My main job is fire inspections, which we go to different buildings, businesses, and check out for fire safety concerns and fire code violations. And then on top of that, on call, I'm one of the 5 fire investigators with Saskatoon Fire Department. I'm also with Martensville Fire Department. I'm a captain out there, paid on call, joined in 2006. So let's go through the job descriptions. So when I work with fire prevention team with Saskatoon Fire Department. It's another aspect of the fire department. So we take care of any fire prevention and fire investigations. Fire prevention and investigation team provides residents with protection against injury, loss of life, and loss of property due to fires and related health and safety hazards. Fire and life safety is enhanced through the development of enforcement of bylaws, fire codes, public education, and fire investigations. The fire prevention and investigation team coordinates fire permit approvals, plan reviews, compliance inspections, and post-fire investigations. The Saskatoon Fire Department conducts over 5,500 inspections a year and more than 200 fire investigations each year. As a fire inspector, fire inspections are in place as prevention measures to protect citizens in their homes, offices, and in public spaces. Fire inspectors conduct routine inspections of commercial businesses, public buildings, and multifamily resident occupancies to ensure that they're in compliance with the National Fire Code. This results in fewer fires, fewer deaths, and significant reduction in property loss. Fire inspections are completed for all commercial and multi-residential buildings. If you own a building, property, or business in Saskatoon, it is important to be aware of your responsibilities outlined in the National Fire Code. As a fire investigator, investigation involves determining the origin, cause, and circumstances of a fire. These findings are collected for statistical use. Complete and accurate data helps the Saskatoon Fire Department evaluate the effectiveness of existing programs and identify the need for new programs. Fire incident reports and fire investigation reports for statistics are used to develop, like I said, new programs such as fire stop, and after the fire. So there's programs in Saskatoon that our prevention team and community relations team have to promote the stopping of kids playing with matches, learning fire safety. And then after the fire, there's a program where they'll come to your place and tell you, ask if you need anything as far as clothing, food, and kind of get you on your feet after the fire. So we use all these statistics to help develop plans like this. Also, our fire investigations reports and incident reports are used to plan training programs for firefighters and primary care paramedics, and identify necessary improvements to fire safety regulations, and identify and plan municipal assistance programs. So duties of a fire inspector. So our duties, we search and notice fire hazards in public buildings and businesses, ensure that the buildings comply with the National Fire Code of Canada, the NFC. We inspect buildings for fire code violations and fire safety concerns. We conduct follow-up visits and make sure that infractions do not recur. Enforce the NFC, which is National Fire Code, and local fire bylaws through education. And if necessary, we also able to hand out fines and tickets for repeat offenders, or it depends on the seriousness of the fire code violation. Review emergency evacuation plans. We review building plans with developers, conduct fire and safety education programs, such as this. We also maintain fire inspection files. So duties of a fire investigator. We follow the NFPA, which is the National Fire Prevention Association 921 Guide for Fire Investigation and Explosion Investigations. We collect and analyze evidence from scenes of fires and explosions. We interview witnesses, interview first-in fire crews. We reconstruct the scene of a fire to kind of help us figure out how it started. We send evidence to laboratories to be tested for accelerants. Accelerants is, stuff like gasoline or anything that used to accelerate a fire. We analyze information with an attorney. So if we ever get called to court, we work with lawyers to build a case against someone, say for an arson case. We document evidence by taking photos and creating diagrams. We determine the cause and the origin of the fire, and we can also testify in civil and criminal legal proceedings. So skills of a fire investigator: you have to be an active listener. We have to have good judgment and decision making. Good at critical thinking. Good at writing, because we do write a lot of reports. Good at instructing. Good at equipment selection for the job. Complex problem solving, so it can be really complex trying to figure out how a fire started. We're going to be good at speaking, which right now I'm a little nervous, so I'm working on that still. Active learning, so we have to be always ready to learn about new things. And reading comprehension. Also be very detail oriented. Communication skills is very good. We're always talking to the public and talking to people. We have to be very have good coordination, integrity, social perceptiveness, management for personal resources. Good at time management. We always have, sometimes we get requests for fire investigation reports to be done at a certain time due to insurance purposes. So we have insurance companies always contacting the fire marshal's office asking for reports. So sometimes we have timelines that we have to work with. We have to be good at science. You have to know the science, the fire behavior of a fire. So the science behind that, how a fire starts, how a fire works, the growth of a fire, how a fire develops inside of structure. Lots of learning strategies. You got to be very good willing to learn different strategies, and also troubleshooting. So the traits of a fire investigator: you got to be kind of outgoing, because you're always out. You're dealing with a lot of people. You got to be approachable. we want people to trust us and telling us what happened. We don't want them to be scared to talk to us. You got to be productive. You got to be understanding, able to think outside the box. Sometimes what you think started a fire may not be the case. So you got to be able to not have tunnel vision and kind of just look at the overall picture. Pay attention to detail. Someone that's not non-judgmental. So make sure you're not judging people the way they live, or you just got to be very respectful and understanding. You got to be very understanding, be a good listener, and a good problem solver. I put physically fit in here. It's not like we're crawling into burning buildings like firefighters. They have to be really, fit for their job. But we're always, we're climbing up ladders. We're digging out basements. We're pulling equipment like kitchen appliances apart. You're moving stuff all the time, so you kind of got to be in fair good shape. So the facility, where location of work for fire inspector and fire investigator, we have offices in the fire stations in Saskatoon. So we share a workspace with firefighters and other fire department personnel. We have right now I'm at my office. It's number 7 station up on Saskatoon Road, on Mormon Road. We also have a fire prevention station on Taylor Street that was an old fire station that was converted to fire prevention station. That's where we keep our fire investigation unit, car 100, which you'll see later I have a video to show you guys after. So that's basically where we work. This is I got a video we'll show after the presentation. I'll just go back to this picture here. This is the equipment that we use. We always have to make sure that we're protecting ourselves. So we have the masks that we wear inside the building after the fire, because there's always contaminants floating around in the air that we have to protect ourselves. Some rewards of being a fire investigator, giving someone closure on how the fire started. It's always very difficult when people have a house fire and they don't know how it started. If you can tell them exactly what happened, might put their mind at ease a bit. I always find that a little bit rewarding to be able to give someone closure on what happened. We also work with the Saskatoon Police Department. They have an arson investigator, a couple of arson investigators on staff that we work with closely. So if there's a suspicious fire, we always get them in, and they take care of the criminal side. So a reward for me is assisting in solving arson fires and proving the cause of the fire, leading to an arrest and conviction of an arsonist. We have a lot of arson fires in Saskatoon in the last few years, and there's been some arrests made, and it's kind of rewarding to know that you're part of that. The satisfaction of solving a complex fire investigation. So it's always kind of rewarding to be able to tell how a fire started, even if it's a big fire where when you pull up, you don't have a clue where to even start. I put this one in here, being able to prove someone wrong. I've had instances where a landlord shows up to the fire and they're like, oh, they're blaming the tenants for something, and then you actually prove that it was actually something wrong or something to do with their, for an instance, like a worker that was there using an extension cord and left it plugged in with an old heater. So I don't know, it's kind of rewarding to be able to prove people that tell you that you're wrong, to make sure, prove that they're wrong. It's kind of a little bit rewarding, I guess. Rewards of being a fire inspector, being able to make an unsafe place livable and safe again. So we go to some pretty terrible places in Saskatoon where people are living, and to be able to make changes by enforcing the fire code and get that building up to code again is, it's very rewarding to give someone that's renting a house that's not very livable to all of a sudden get them into a place that's safe. So we work with a lot of vulnerable people in Saskatoon, and we're kind of their voice to help change their living conditions through enforcing the fire code and the fire bylaws. So that's rewarding. To getting someone help they need to turn their life around. We work with a lot of drug addictions, mental health. So we have outreach programs that we use and to get people help. And this one's a good one. Meeting awesome people. We meet lots of great people out when we're doing inspections, and we're doing, you're working with people that depend on you to get the landlord to make the place safe, even if it's putting up a smoke alarm or fixing up a broken set of stairs or something. So I don't know, we meet a lot of nice, awesome people out there. There's some challenges of being a fire investigator. Dealing with death is hard. Sorry. As you can see, that's a challenge. So yeah, we deal with a lot of, not a lot, but when we're dealing with a fire that's resulting, or a death that's resulting from a fire, it's kind of hard, but we have steps to take to help get through that. Dealing with unruly and rude people, we deal with this all the time. If you're doing a fire investigation, the owner shows up and they're like telling you, to get off their property, but they don't have. We have the right to be there to do our job. So another hard one is telling a dad, or a mom, that the cause of the fire was from the child playing with a lighter. Working conditions aren't always favorable. We're working a lot. You're working in a house that's been burnt down, and it can be a little bit scary sometimes going into some of those places. You just got to be very careful. We don't usually put ourselves in danger at all. We're very careful for what we put ourselves into. Investigating fires at -40 is always fun, especially in Saskatchewan. We get a lot of that in the winter time, so that could be very challenging. One other challenge is knowing that someone lied to you, but you can't prove it. So that fire started because they did it intentionally, but there's no proof because it's been burnt up in the fire. That's that'd be a challenge, I guess. But challenges for fire inspectors, dealing with repeat offenders regarding fire code violations. We're always going. That's why we have the power to enforce with tickets. So once they get tickets, they kind of don't really. They kind of see it and say, okay, I better do those changes. It's for the best for safety. Dealing with rude and disrespectful business owners who have done that before in the past, and they're like, well, we don't have to do that. We have never had to do that before. Why now? But fire codes changing. There's always new fire codes coming out, but just because you've done it forever doesn't mean it's safe. Telling someone that we're closing their house and they have to find a new place to live, that's always a challenge. It's always kind of hard. And another one, sometimes we deal with a lot of unruly landlords, so they sometimes yell and scream in your face. I've had that happen before. We also, if that ever happens, we step back and always call the police if we have to. So this is kind of the salary and benefits of a fire inspector, fire investigator in Saskatoon. The Saskatoon Fire Department is part of the Saskatoon Professional Firefighters Association Union of the IAFF Local 80. So our wages are negotiated, and it's through a CBA, collective bargain agreement. So for the first year, the annual salary for a fire inspector is $68,000. That's about $35 an hour. And then every year you get an increment up to 10 years. You max out at $120,000 a year, which is $62 an hour. We have benefits. We have dental, drugs, vision care, health professional, like some, massages and stuff like that, hospital and travel insurance. We also are provided with group life insurance. Something happens to us on the job. With pension, we have the Saskatoon Firefighters Pension Plan and mandatory retirement at age 60. Here's our holidays. We get 13 stats off a year. So as a fire inspector, we'll get into it down here, but we work Monday to Thursday and every other Friday. So every other Friday we get off. So we're Monday to Friday. So we get every stat that comes off, we get that day off. You get 3 weeks of holidays after your first year of employment, and then 4 weeks after 8 years, 5 weeks after 16 years, and 6 weeks after 24 years. So yeah, the hours of work is Monday to Thursday, like I said, and we work every other Friday. It's from 7:40 in the morning till noon, and then we get a 45-minute lunch break, and then we work for 16:45, which is 4:45 p.m. So 8 hours and 20 minutes a day, and that gives us that extra day off every 2 weeks. Fire investigators, we get the same wage as the fire inspectors, but when we're on call, we get $10 a day. It's not much, but it's a little incentive for us. We get that every month when you're on call, and then you get overtime every time you get called out. So all overtime is double time. So education requirements to be a fire inspector and a fire investigator, you need your high school diploma, post-secondary education certificates. So you need your fire service course, pre-fire service course. So like a place like Brandon Fire School, Vermilion has one, Lakeland. So yeah, this is Brandon Emergency Services College is in Brandon. So that's where you go to fire college to get your firefighter level 1 and your firefighter level 2, and your hazmat, which is hazardous awareness, materials awareness. You need those certificates. And then on top of your firefighting certificates, you need to have fire prevention courses, which is your fire inspector, fire investigator, and your fire service instructor. So these NFPA numbers here, those are different courses that are from the National Fire Protection Association. It's a nationwide association that regulates what schools teach for firefighting. So it has to be accredited, so you get an accredited seal when you're done. Work experience requirements to be a fire investigator. It's recommended that you have 3 to 5 years experience as a firefighter. They do that because they want people that have been inside a fire, fought a fire, and actually know how a fire reacts, how a fire grows. It's all that fire behavior. Kind of gives you some experience that way. Previous fire inspector or fire investigator experience is an asset. So if you came from another smaller center like myself, I was in Martinsville doing fire inspections. That helped me get on with Saskatoon. Saskatoon Fire Department is unionized, so they offer positions within the union before offering it to someone else outside the union. So if no one else applied within the union, then they go outside the union to look for employment. So this is my journey. This is kind of how I got here. So I grew up in Fisk, Saskatchewan, small town just outside of Rosetown. Graduated from the Rosetown Central High School way back in 1996. And I'd like to thank Kevin Gletz for helping me through that, but I don't think he really helped me do anything. A little dig there. Anyway, I graduated in 1996. Took a few years off, but I like to stress to people, to students, don't rush into something. If you don't know what you want to do, take some time. Hit the workforce and see what you want to do. I took 4 years off school. I worked at Saskatchewan Wheat Pool Seed Plant in Rosetown. During that time, I joined the Rosetown Fire Department, so that's kind of where it all started. I also took a first responder course that kind of got me interested in becoming a firefighter. So after many talks with my parents back then, trying to decide what I wanted to do, I decided, I wanted to become a firefighter or do something in marketing. I had two different options. I always thought, it's best to have a fallback plan. and I stress that to my kids too. Make sure you have a second, fallback plan, because it's not all the time that things are going to work out the way you think. You might need to have another option. So I had two options. I was going to go to marketing or firefighting. But to do that, I needed biology 30, and Mr. Gletz in his guidance counseling days forgot to tell me I should probably take biology 30. I'll blame that on him. So anyway, I decided to go back and do some upgrading. So in the spring of 2000, I attended Medicine Hat College, took some art classes for marketing, and I took my biology 30. And once I got my biology 30, I kind of decided that art and marketing weren't going to be for me. So I decided to apply for PCP, which is an EMT and an ambulance, primary care paramedic. I applied for that and got in to the course in Saskatoon. So I started applying to different firefighting courses in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. And in 2021, or sorry, that's today. In 2001, I moved back to Saskatoon for work. I was out in Alberta. So I moved back in 2001 and waited to get into firefighting and PCP. January of 2002, I attended the Emergency Services Training Institute in Martinsville. They had a fire school back then. It went on for like 4 or 5 years, where they taught you firefighting training. And I received my pre-service firefighting certificate there. So that's a picture of me when I was young, back in fire school. Don't worry, that fire was not, we weren't there to put it out. It was a training fire, so we took advantage to take pictures in front of it, because that's what you do when you're young and in fire school. In 2002, so yeah, that summer, September, I attended SciAst. That's the Kelsey Institute in Saskatoon, and received my primary care paramedic certificate in January of 2003. After I got my certificate as a PCP, I got a temporary position as a PCP with an ambulance service in Spiritwood. I was there from January to June of 2003, worked on the ambulance. Then I got a job in Kinnersley as an oil field firefighter. I was there for 3 years in Kinnersley from June 2003 to February of 2006. Then I also then after that, I started applying in Saskatoon. I got a position at the airport as an aircraft rescue firefighter and PCP. So I was on the Saskatoon Airport Fire Department for 11 years, 2006 to 2017. That's training fire that we did out at the training grounds at the airport. This is fire in Martinsville. This is another fire in Martinsville. So during that time, I got on the Martinsville Fire Department as a firefighter, and I'm currently a captain there. So out in Martinsville, we're paid on call. We carry a pager, and we get called out for medical emergencies and fires and car accidents. That's kind of like my part-time gig. 2010, I decided I wanted to further my education and started looking at becoming a fire inspector. So 2010, I took an online fire inspector course through the Manitoba Emergency Services College, and I received my NFPA 1031 Level 1 certificate in 2010. After I got my certificate as a fire inspector, I worked part-time as a fire inspector in Martinsville with the fire department until April of 2018, when I applied to Saskatoon. But before that, I took a this should be fire investigator, that's a typo. So I took a fire investigator course put on by the province of Saskatchewan at the Swift Current Fire Department. In October of 2017, I wrote my test, did a practical, and received my certificate as a fire investigator. Before all that happened, in 2018, I got on with the City of Saskatoon as a bylaw inspector. And then from there, I got on as a fire inspector with the fire department. January 2018, I took an online course and got my fire inspector level 2. So there's two different levels as a fire inspector. Just a little bit extra accreditation, certificates to help. And on April 30th of 2018, I was offered a position as a fire inspector with the Saskatoon Fire Department, and that's where I currently am today. In October of 2018, I was also offered a fire investigation position with the Saskatoon Fire Department, and this is now part of my duties with the fire prevention team with the Saskatoon Fire Department. Here's a couple pictures. This is from a motel in Saskatoon that was on the news quite a bit a couple years ago, where we actually went in and closed it down due to the living conditions. So we had to put on these suits to protect us from cockroaches. These rooms were pretty disgusting. We had cockroaches falling from the ceilings, from the doors when you open the doors. So these are some of the conditions that we go in. We have to wear suits like this kind of to protect us from biohazards, other stuff like that. This I got caught on the news for one of our apartments in Saskatoon that we were always at. The fire department actually ended up closing that apartment building, and it's up for sale and they're going to redo it, and the living conditions in that place were pretty poor too, so we're always dealing with that. Here's some pictures of fire investigations that I was part of. This was a electrical fire on the outside of a house. It was actually a smoker plugged in there, and it shorted out and caught the house on fire. This one here is a fire at a McDonald's. One of their deep fryers started on fire. This is in an apartment building. This was this past summer. Actually, I think it was in June. Just downtown Saskatoon, it was a commercial building that burnt down. And we end up finding the cause of that fire was arson. This is a garage fire that started from this encampment. So since this picture, actually, we've been working closely with other agencies in Saskatoon. This is a couple months ago, but we've been working with other agencies trying to not trying to fix homelessness, but trying to steer people in the right direction to make sure they have a safe place to live, since it is winter now. So the fire department is working closely with other agencies to help find people homes. But this was an encampment, and this barbecue was actually inside this. There's tarps over here, and the barbecue was too close to the tarps. Caught on fire, caught the fence on fire, and took down the neighbor's garage. Here's a house fire. So when we're doing a fire scene, we're looking at all angles of all sides of the house, and to me, you're focusing on the area what's most burnt. And it turned out that this window was the basement window. There was gasoline poured in there, and someone intentionally set this house on fire. And there's the jerry can that we found beside the house. That's just inside the basement. So the fire started inside here. So when we're doing investigations, we're looking at fire patterns like this charring. We could tell that this area burnt longer than this area. So we can tell that this fire started inside this basement. That's the outside of the house. So this fire started over here, and you can see there's a fire pattern here. So we're always looking for we call it a V pattern. We're looking for these V patterns to kind of point where the fire originated. This is kind of a interesting one. I didn't know toilets could burn, but apparently they do. They can if accelerant was poured on it. So this individual lit this toilet on fire and ran out of the house and left his roommate in there, and the roommate came to use the bathroom and the toilet was on fire. We deal with a lot of kitchen fires. We always have to prove that that's where it started. So we're also looking at this area here. There's a V, oops, kind of a V pattern pointing towards a stove. We know that a stove can be hot and used for heating stuff up. So that's where we focus on. And you can tell by flipping over the pan that these coil marks are from this burner, which was on when the fire started. This fire, young kid was cooking some French fries, deep frying them, put some oil in, and forgot about it, and that ignited and started the kitchen on fire. This was a big fire. Another commercial building in downtown Saskatoon. This was last summer. We determined that the fire actually started at this back door. Some kid actually was caught on a video lighting a fire or carrying a toolkit, and then came back here, and all of a sudden he disappeared, and him and his friend waited. We saw him in another video, and they left as soon as the fire trucks were coming down the street. And that's actually the kid. We caught this video. We worked with police. They gave us this image, and I actually was driving down the street about 2 months later, and I recognized this guy's bike and this guy's hat. He still had the same hat on. I recognized his shoes. He was just riding his bike. I looked over, and I actually stopped, and I said, "Hey, can I ask you a few questions?" And the kid stopped. He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Were you at a fire down the street about a month ago?" Because he actually went to another fire that he had started and talked to our fire crews, and they got video of him. He goes, "Yeah, I was." And then I said, I think I recognize you from another fire. It's like, "Well, I don't know what you're talking about." I said, "Well, can you just wait there for a few minutes? And I'm going to ask you some questions." I ended up phoning the police arson investigator. He came and confirmed that it was him. And he was arrested, and I'm not sure whatever happened. I hope he turned his life around. That's something we do. We kind of follow up on, see where these people end up. Hopefully they know that they made a wrong decision, and hopefully they're turning their life around. There's just a picture of some of the firefighters. But so what I do when I show up at a fire and they're still fighting the fire, I walk around, I take pictures, because it was actually a good thing, because this here is where the fire started on this building. But before we can even do our fire investigation, they had to knock this building down because it was in danger. It was endangering the public because it could have fallen down. So they ended up tearing this down. So I had pictures, and this is happened to be where the fire was started. We actually got video of someone walking by here and lighting a fire underneath. And that's what ended up. So this is what I had to go with, was this picture, because this is what ended up happening. They had to tear it down. Kitchen fire, started on the stove. We always clean off the stove and then we reconstruct. And we end up finding this popcorn maker was left on the back burner. Kid age 6 was playing with a lighter. His 4-year-old sister started a fire on some paper, and it got up on the wall, started the bed on fire, and everyone thankfully got out safely. This is a common one, smoking. So we look at the fire scene, we see the fire pattern, we see this melting here. That's a planter full of peat moss, and it was above this chair, and there's a plastic bag full of recycling. So the cigarette was put out the night before, left in there. It wasn't put out all the way, and it started on fire. We actually found part of the cigarette in there, so we could tell that that's where the fire started. We're also ruling out other sources of ignition, like there's no electrical here. The barbecue's here, but there's no burn marks on the barbecue, so we knew that the fire didn't start here. And of course, there's a lighter here and an ashtray, so we knew that this was their smoking area. So we knew that that's where the fire started. So that's kind of some pictures of some fire investigations. Opportunities as a fire investigator. Fire investigator positions usually require firefighting experience. So most fire investigators were firefighters previously. Depending on where you are in the seniority list in the union, you can move up to deputy fire marshal from a fire inspector, and then to fire marshal, and then to an assistant fire chief. So there is room for advancement in fire prevention. This career could lead to other fire prevention positions, for example, for the province of Saskatchewan, or similar positions with other fire departments throughout Canada. Also, private companies such as insurance companies hire private investigators, so there's some opportunity there. How does life and work balance? Well, fire inspectors are daytime and weekday employees. So, you're working during the day, you're not working at night, and you're working during the week. So you have every weekend off, which is nice. Fire investigators are required to be on call. So we have 5 fire investigators, and we're on call for 24 hours from Monday to Wednesday. And then so you work that Wednesday, you're on call. Thursday morning, another fire investigator comes on until Sunday, and then it alternates. So we have a schedule that's put out to us with 5 fire investigators, and it's on a rotation. So every 3 or 4 weeks, you're on call. And I guess that's it. Any questions? I'll stop. No. So we have, there's about 12 fire inspectors, and there's 5 of us that do fire investigating.
Oh, so some do both, but not all. Okay.
Yeah. So we have right now we have 5 of us. We rotate through, and then whoever has their training. But right now we're kind of set at 5. That's kind of a good number to work with. You don't want to have too many, because then you're kind of going without a fire investigation, kind of losing your skills type of thing is what there's the kind of the thought process on that.
You can keep doing it, yeah. I was going to ask you too. Sounds like in your training you did a fair amount of online training and stuff like that. Is that are those various lengths of courses, or do you do them over months, or?
Yeah, so you do them over, like when I did my fire inspector course, it was from, I think it was January to March. So you have assignments that you have to complete, and this is back before online schooling right now, so it's probably similar to what it is now. You get assignments, and then you have to write your test at a certain date.
Okay.
And then for my fire investigator, I did that in Swift Current. So I went down to Swift Current for a week in January. They had a course at the fire station there, and then a week again in April. I was down there, and then a week again in October. So it was a 3-week course over 9 months, kind of thing.
Okay. Good. Okay, Ryan, Ryan, we'd like to thank you today for sharing that with us. I really appreciate it. I really learned a lot about fire investigation, more than I before. Showing those pictures of some of the fire scenes, I was intrigued by that. So you guys got lots to look at when you go out there, that's for sure. So once again, thank you.
Yeah,
and just want to remind people that we're going to have another video of Ryan doing a fire investigation as well. So look at that if you get a chance. I think you'll enjoy that too. Thanks.
All right. Thanks for having me.